Predicting the Olympic roster for basketball in 2028. With the Olympics going on right now and the men's basketball team doing very well as expected, I thought it'd be fun to predict the next Olympic team. Now, of course, this was incredibly hard because you can't predict injuries and, players who just come out of nowhere, so to speak, and become all-stars and that kind of stuff. And then just there's a lot of talent in the NBA. It's hard. So I will say before I start, if Steph, LeBron, and KD are still in the league, because I didn't put them on this list just because in 4 years, I'm not sure. If they're still in the league, watch out for them to make the Olympic roster. But besides them, let's get into the video. So number one, as you could see on the screen, is Paolo Banchero. And he was one of the first players I put on the list, and one of the players I put as a quote-unquote lock. So some of the players on the list, I was going back and forth in between if they were going to make it or somebody else. But Paolo was one of the players, like I said, who I'm like, nah, he's kind of guaranteed a spot in a way. In 4 years, Paolo should be that good and he should make the Olympic roster. Number two is Jaylen Williams. At first, I didn't have him on the list, and then I was like, wait a minute, Jaylen Williams from OKC, not the other Jaylen Williams, also on OKC. His teammate is also a good player, but this Jaylen Williams, he is blossoming, and I don't see him taking a step back. So for that reason, I think Jaylen Williams will be an all-star at that point, and he will be on the Olympic roster. Also, before anyone's like, why isn't Shea on it, or Wembanyama and all that kind of stuff? Those players play for different countries. So Shea's playing for Canada, Wembanyama's playing for France. So keep in mind, some of the players are not on the list because they're not going to play for the USA basketball team. Tyrese Maxey was another quote-unquote lock to me. He was probably the second player I put on the list because look at Maxey. He's been taking huge step forwards every year, especially this year. I don't see him stopping anytime soon. I think he might even have a bigger season than last year. Maybe not a bigger jump statistics-wise and kind of role-wise because he already did have, he ended up having a bigger role because Harden left. But watch out for Maxey. He is going to be something special. Next is Evan Mobley. As you could tell, my list is kind of younger players, and there will be older players, I guess, if you want to say. Nobody is old in the NBA, but I do think that the next Olympic team is going to be generally younger players, younger than this roster rather, just because, I don't know, I just see the talent pool from the younger players just making the Olympic team. Evan Mobley will be a much needed big man on the roster because you always need at least two of them, and Evan Mobley will be that guy. Very, very good defender, someone they could definitely use on the Olympics team. Block shots, protect the paint. So Evan Mobley, welcome to the team. This is probably a wild card, but Donovan King, I don't know why, I just have this gut feeling that at this point, he's going to be at a somewhat of an all-star level, and if not, just qualify to make the Olympic team. Again, just my gut feeling. Same with Reed Sheppard. I just have this funny feeling that those two, because remember, it's 4 years from now, so they will have 4 years in the NBA. They won't be rookies. So you do have to think about it from that standpoint. I know it's hard because you're we didn't see them play yet. At that point, though, they're kind of veterans in a way. But so I think Reed Sheppard and Donovan King, I think they're going to be nice, and I think they're going to make the Olympic roster. They're going to be the youngest on the team. Now, this list would not be complete without AntMan. He will, at this point, be the veteran, the old guy, even though he's only going to be 27 or something like that. So this is what I mean when I say the roster will be a bit younger. Because you're thinking, Anthony Edwards is so young, but at that point, he will be 27, which, again, is not old. But that will be, a good age to be on the roster, and he will be a veteran leading the group. Same with Tyrese Halliburton. Those two will have had Olympic experience, so they'll be able to guide the younger players who haven't been there before. They will be right in their primes, and it'll just be the perfect time. So Halliburton as well, because I don't expect Halliburton or AntMan to get worse. I expect them to get even better. Next up is Ja Morant. Now, again, this list is pending on people staying healthy and all that kind of stuff. And before Ja Morant, the injury, suspension, all that stuff, I feel like Ja Morant could have potentially made this Olympics team because he was on that path. So again, barring injury and stuff like that, I don't see why I shouldn't include him on this list. He was heading that way. So Zion is an honorable mention. So you'll notice I have 13 players on this list because Zion is the only one where I was like, talent-wise, I can't not include him. Like, if he is healthy, there's no way he's not on the roster. His health is just the biggest question out of anybody on this list. So he's like a 50-50 for me, but I couldn't not include him. So these are players 10 and 11 on the list for me. Again, assuming like that in this case Zion wouldn't be there. If he's there, obviously it's different. Brandon Pajemski, he's going to be a very good player in the NBA for a while, you could tell. I feel like he would have that Derek White role, and like that's not even, like that's nothing to be sad about. Like Derek White is a very good player. Brandon could be even better than Derek White, but I'm saying like from an Olympic standpoint because he plays kind of similar to Derek White in a way. Like he does all the little things, and so you always need someone like that on the roster. So I think Brandon Pajemski will be on the roster to have that Derek White role. And then Jonathan Kuminga, if you watch this page, you know I'm a huge fan of his, so my bias kicks in here. But I really do think Jonathan Kuminga is headed towards all-star level. So I feel like 4 years from now, he's clearly in his prime, super athletic, can do so many different things on the court, super gifted, so I don't see why he wouldn't be an all-star. Now, would he play for USA though? Actually, that's a question. So maybe he actually wouldn't play for USA. So that is something to consider actually. But if he did play for USA, because Joel Embiid is playing for USA, then Kuminga's on the roster. And then the last player on the list is going to be like the oldest guy on the roster. Can you believe that? Jason Tatum as the old guy. Everyone still thinks he's 19. Jason Tatum will be 30 at that point, which is still prime. But he will be the veteran on the team, the oldest. I felt like I couldn't not include Jason Tatum. It just felt wrong. But let me tell you, making this list was hard. There are a bunch of players who are in their primes now who will still be technically in their prime, like a Devin Booker, who's on the Olympic roster right now. He's not going to be old. He's probably going to be, 32 maybe? And like, he can easily make the Olympic roster, but I just feel like it's going to be really tough with all this talent. Same with Jaylen Brown. Like I had him on the, maybe list. I had Jalen Brunson on the maybe list. I had Chet on the maybe list. I feel like Chet is still a 50-50 for me. It just really depends what the roster needs because he is a big man, 7'2", who could shoot the three, and he can block shots, block shots and protect the rim. So he's still a question mark for me. And there were others on the list. Like I have a list that was like 25 players or something like that. And then I was like, okay, I have to narrow it down. I have to just, go with my gut, pick what I think. And so this is what the list I ended up with. I think it's a pretty good list because I made it. But let me know in the comments down below what you think and who you think will make the roster.